Today we're going to have a look at the case of Johnny Depp and Amber Heard. Obviously, they've been making the news waves for quite some time, at least several months by now. And, of course, one could go through all the nitty-gritty details. I don't want to spend too much time on that because I think there are other more salient important points to highlight here with respects to male-female relations in general and the system. Needless to say, they, quote-unquote, fell in love or in lust, one could argue, and got married shortly after that, and it was, needless to say, a tawdry affair, and they ended it rather quickly. Initially, there was an attempt to settle things, but then Amber Heard wanted to take him to the cleaners on purported claims of abuse. That's the nutshell version of it all. But I think there's a lot more to take away from this. Some of the basic stuff is obviously sort of time-honored wisdom. The idea, for example, that a wealthy, powerful man is somehow immune to the effects of the system. Well, clearly he's not. Brad Pitt wasn't. All these men who went through horrific divorces have shown themselves to be effectively not immune to these things. And that should be a lesson to everyone, quote-unquote, underneath them. Although I would never tell somebody as a commandment, thou shalt not get married, there are many important and pressing reasons not to do so. And obviously this message at times is a bit like beating a dead horse, but it's vital and essential. Because when we see what happened, particularly in the case between Johnny Depp and Amber Heard, we get a sense of just how bad things are, even when you're absolutely at the top. And I think that Johnny Depp is a very good case for somebody who is, quote-unquote, at the top. Now, one aspect I want to focus in on here is this almost universal slogan-esque notion of believe all women, right? Because Amber Heard claimed that Johnny Depp abused her. And the claim itself in contemporary society and civilization is severe enough. Once a woman makes that claim, there's no going back, effectively. That claim will taint you for the rest of your life, probably. The rare exception to that might be when you irrefutably disprove said claim, which is very difficult in these strange marital relationship affairs. And of course, in the wake of that, there was audio evidence to suggest that Amber Heard was in fact the abusive one. And the actual evidence pointed and tilted in that direction. But what did we actually bear witness to after that? It wasn't, oh, Amber Heard is lying, she's doing all these things, it's a clear case of a false accusation, etc., etc. Because I'll remind you that Johnny Depp's ex-wife specifically said that he would never do such a thing and never did so during the course of their relatively long marriage. So you had that statement, coupled by audio evidence suggesting that the person who was abusive, who inflicted actually serious injuries on Johnny Depp to some degree, was Amber Heard. And people ran away with it. They thought, this is the death knell of Amber Heard. She's done these bad things. There's really good evidence now. Case closed, right? There was this talk, for example, of Amber Heard allegedly being banned from the DC cinematic universe. But no, she hasn't been. This has been more gossip and mythology than anything else. And it's still not clear in the court sense who is in the wrong, which is to say, despite much more evidence in the favor of Johnny Depp and much more evidence in the favor of him not being the so-called perpetrator of abuse or violence, Amber Heard is not just getting the time of day, she's getting more than the time of day. People are actually paying attention to her, and Johnny Depp is still being vilified. So this notion, which we have to live with in the culture, of believe all women, almost as if it were an axiom of human existence, you're a woman, therefore I believe you, is really dragging this case out and making Johnny Depp's situation that much more miserable. Now, imagine the reverse scenario occurred with the evidence that was presented, audio evidence, as well as statements made by previous partners or former spouses, and it would be case closed, case shut, Johnny Depp did it, end of story. But no, it's being dragged out, nobody really knows, etc., etc. So this is something we always have to be aware of, which is also a reason why men need to be ultra careful in their engagements with women. Whatever you think you might know, however safe you might think you are, the reality behind it all comes down to the principle of believe all women, and if she doesn't like you, she can make up a story, and at least initially she'll be believed. And furthermore, if there's any ambiguity between you and her, or the interactions you've had, that will make things that much more difficult. And let's be honest, the nature of male-female interactions is largely ambiguous. It's not always clear what's going on. And there are many cases of this. Women who were rejected or spurned want to get revenge on the men that did so, and so they make up lies, and all sorts of things happen. False rape accusations, etc., etc. There are a lot of risks, which is why I say, I get it if you're a young man, you want to participate in these things, your hormones are driving you in that direction, but it bears caution. You really, really should be careful about these things. No one is immune from top to bottom. Now, there's another aspect to this that I want to highlight, and that is the question as to why Johnny Depp got involved with this harridan in the first place. Well, she's pretty hot, or was pretty hot. She's getting on in years. And I think it's this almost notorious, infamous example of don't stick your dick in crazy. Now, Johnny Depp was obviously in lust. He found her really attractive, blah, 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 and he just ran with his pee-pee. Now, it might seem to a lot of people it's such a simple and senseless thing to point out, but don't think and do with your dick. The one thing that you'll hear in the mainstream or have heard during your lifetime from critics, feminists, women, etc., is that men think with their dicks. And they don't think with their dicks per se, but they're led oftentimes by their dicks. And so there's a kernel of truth to that. What was the process of evaluation that Johnny Depp engaged in order to come to the conclusion that it was a good idea to marry this woman? Because I think he didn't have much of a process of evaluation. I think he simply dove into it and didn't think much about it. And this is something that happens, unfortunately, quite frequently with men. We as men are attracted to the physical. We tend to only focus on that. Rollo Tomassi, the famous PUA, likes to say, what are the criteria of men? It's, are you hot and are you available? And that might be quite simple. But it's interesting, despite vastly different evolutionary pathways that men and women respectively have taken, the relative caution that women have, albeit for completely different reasons, when it comes to pairing and mating rituals, is something that I think men can learn a little bit from, in the sense of not just running off of pure instinct. Now, women also run off of pure instincts, just that their instincts are given a different filter because they have different needs, wants, and requirements. But as a guy, obviously, knock it out, finish it up, boom. And that might have been great in the past, but if your single sole criterion of importance is she hot, and then is she available, and you want to move with that, and you're actually interested in some sort of long-term prospect or, the gods forbid, marriage, you might want to think a little bit about that. You might want to evaluate other things. I think we're at the stage now, at least theoretically, although many people can't and won't, to move past the most guttural instincts we have in evaluating human beings, and specifically quote-unquote partners. Most men are going to want to get into relationships. Most men are going to want to pursue some kind of romantic encounter, and some men are going to get married, regardless of what they know or don't know, regardless of what you tell them or don't tell them. For such men, and even if you're going to have lighter entanglements with female kind, it's imperative that you override some of these guttural instincts to some degree, and not only use the criterion of hot enough, whatever. To think about, on some levels, ask the question, will you be able to coexist with her beyond sticking your pee-pee in the vajayjay? It sounds like such a simple suggestion, but time and again I encounter men who end up in boatloads of trouble. These are productive, successful men who are quote-unquote well put together, in their 30s, sometimes in their 40s, and sometimes, in the case of Johnny Depp, in their 50s, who, for some reason, and we all know what the reason is, are not paying attention to these things, and they just fall for these booby traps, no pun intended. So the lesson to be learned here, ultimately, from both sides here is, don't trust the system. The idea that women will always be believed is almost axiomatic in our society, and so you need to plan and act in accordance with that. And especially if you're young, but even if you're older, since all sorts of guys fall for this, do not let your dick be your guiding light in pursuing female kind. Because if that's your sole criterion, and that is your sole point of guidance, you will almost inevitably end up in a world of hurt and a sea of trouble. Anyway, gentlemen, thanks for tuning in. Please leave a like if you can. Please share the video. Hit the bell icon and subscribe if you have not yet done so. And as always, if I'm still alive, I'll check you out later. Until the next time, may the gods watch over you. Bye-bye. If you liked this video, please like, share, and subscribe. And if you enjoy my content, please consider making a donation or becoming a patron. Thanks for watching.